fallout of another blowout loss at home. Jerry Jones went on his weekly hit with Sean and RJ on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, and he wasn't too interested in explaining some of his decisions as a GM. Take a listen.
Your job isn't to let me go over all the reasons that I did something and I'm sorry that I did it. That's not your job.
Well, my job is to ask
why.
why.
A job, or I'll get somebody else to ask these questions, man. Y'all really think you're going to sit here with a microphone and tell me all of the things that I've done wrong and without going over the rights?
Awkward.
Yeah, and then he said, "I'm not joking."
Right.
All right, so real quick, the guy who asked the question has an odd. So he did middays in Kansas City when I did afternoons, and when he left to go to Dallas, the person who replaced him doing the midday show is Danny Parkins, who now does Breakfast Ball. Wow. So I've known Sean for a long time, and he's done this interview with Jerry for a long time.
But that's good there's an opening because it sounds like...
Okay. So, but here's the thing. So he doesn't work for the Cowboys. He works for the Cowboys flagship that is a partnership. So Jerry's saying that's a weird spot because Jerry technically can't fire him, but he probably can. You know what I like? He can't, he's not Jerry's boss. Jerry's not his boss. But if Jerry's like, I won't ever come on your radio station again, it's probably bad for Sean. So that's a real power move by Jerry that he could have pulled at any time. And I've listened to a lot of these interviews. They're all, when the Cowboys are doing poorly, they're not combative, but they ask real questions. It's not like a fluff piece thing. Jerry reacted more dramatically than I've ever heard him react to this weekly interview. And it's because Jerry is on tilt.
That's right.
Jerry just saw the worst loss he has ever seen in his building since he owned the team. Jerry also, a couple weeks ago, Brew, what did he say? Yeah, give me all the blame. Yeah. I want all the blame. And all because Jerry didn't think there was going to be that much blame to go around. And you know a guy's on tilt in anything, whether it's a marriage, a business, a sport, when they're like, hey, what about that awesome thing I did 30 years ago? Why don't I have credit for that? Like, where's that? Like, then you know things are going poorly. And that's the spot Jerry has found himself in. And so, listen, I think Sean and RJ will be fine. They've done a great job there for a very long time. But I think the story here is the owner is wildly frustrated and, more importantly, shocked. I think he is shocked that this team keeps getting their teeth kicked in front of him, and that it happened in his building is, not helpful, or on his birthday, pardon me, is not helpful.
I think the interview was emblematic of one of the major problems with Jerry Jones. He thinks he knows jobs that he doesn't know. And he's got enough power and money to get himself in those jobs. So, number one, he said, that's not your job to ask questions. That's exactly their job. And like you said, they weren't rude about it. You got to ask them, well, this offseason, you guys didn't make any moves. That's just a regular question a journalist should ask. So Jerry's saying that's not your job. He's totally wrong about that. That's exactly what they should do. Number two, he thinks he knows how to be a GM. And he doesn't. And I get it that he was technically the general manager back when they won those Super Bowls when he first bought the team. But Jimmy Johnson was running player personnel. And he won, even when he got rid of Jimmy as coach, they won that last Super Bowl with Barry Switzer with Jimmy's guys. Ever since Jimmy's been gone and Jerry's been running the personnel, they've been okay, but they haven't gotten to a championship game in the conference. And I think a lot of the credit for drafting goes to Stephen Jones, his son. So I don't think he knows that job. And thirdly, face of the franchise job. What other franchise has the owner as the face of the franchise? I can't think of it since George Steinbrenner.
All the fans.
The whole face. Right. Like, Clark Hunt's not the face of the franchise. Vic Grossbeck wasn't the face of the Celtics. I'm talking about the teams that win, the owners in the background. But Jerry doing these interviews twice, 3 times a week, it's ridiculous. And now, Coach, this interview is going to become a distraction in the building and the franchise that's going to take their attention off the main thing, which is improving that football team.
Yeah, Jerry did something that every head coach and GM has always wanted to do, is be able to clap back at the people that are asking those questions, but there's no owner in the league that wouldn't then reprimand the head coach or GM for doing
Just
that.
ask Nick
So
Sirianni
he's in that position. And the other thing is, this isn't something that's being done to Jerry. This is something that Jerry has done to himself. He decided to embrace this role, and when you embrace these roles and have that power, with that comes the criticism that is bestowed upon your failures, and you have to eat it if you want that spot.
They're 3.
Yeah, it's I've already talked about how I think Jerry should have responded to that. I did that with the herd and all of that, and so I'm always trying to figure out the best ways to cover the same topics on different shows, because I know people watch different shows and want to see how different people, react to it. So I try to figure out how to like kind of go about this without always having to repeat myself and just say the same thing, because that's boring and not even that interesting to me, as well as I'm sure for you as well. But of course, there will always be some overlap. But here's what I really find interesting as well, is that, right, obviously no one here is going to defend Jerry Jones and all of this. And obviously Nick went into him, Mangini went into him, and so did Broussard. And what I find most fascinating is the levels of delusion that Jerry Jones has right now, right? It's talked about, and I actually just wrote this in a comment literally minutes before doing this video, where it's like Jerry Jones has had so much success in his life and his career, both in the past, especially with the Cowboys, but also even present, right? Like the dude, just every day he looks at his bank account, it's just going up, 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 right? And he's just surrounded by people who are like, yes, Jerry, yes, Jerry, yes, Jerry. And it's just, you're guaranteed to be delusional. You're just guaranteed to literally see yourself as a god, right? I mean, because you saw that video of him landing at the Cowboys facility, and he was in a helicopter. I mean, like, the guy just lives a wild life, right? He can literally do anything that he wants in this world, like anything. And it's an issue to be. It's a problem to have when you're now running a team like this, though, because the way I really kind of look at it is, I think teen stars are the best way to look at this, because we see famous kids who get, real famous, whatever, and they all end up losing their minds. They all end up having really, really awful, sad issues, because at such a young age, they're told you're perfect, you're amazing, you're beautiful, you're this, you're that. They're worshipped by adults, by other kids, right? The Justin Biebers of the world, the Miley Cyruses, Britney Spearses, whoever, and it's just one of those things where it's impossible to have an actual understanding of how the world works, of what's actually real and what's not. And so, of course, you're just not going to get it. You're just not going to get it. That is the problem. When you have someone who just doesn't get it, who's running your team now, who's making these really important decisions, that's a problem. All the owners in the NFL and any team really are going to have that disconnect, because these guys are all just mega successful, mega wealthy. Now you have the GMs, though, who are also probably, they're also, wealthy, but nowhere near in the levels of Jerry Jones and the owners. But they're still the guys who are on the ground getting that work done, right? They're still the guys that are really intelligent. Like, they're in their intellectual prime for the most part, because you have an intellectual prime too, right? Like, you have a prime of when you're sharp, you're hungry, you're thirsty. Like, most people, we often think of professions, or, like sports, as a prime, right? That you have LeBron's in his prime, Steph Curry's in his prime, right? Mahomes in his prime. And we don't think that you have other professions that also have a prime. And the reality is, doctors have a prime, lawyers have a prime, carpenters have a prime. Like, there is a prime that you have. Jerry Jones may have been in his prime like 30 years ago, whatever it may be. He is not. And you have GMs that are in their prime. Again, they are intellectually incredibly sharp. They have the energy to work those 60-plus hour work weeks. They have the drive, the hunger, the determination. They're trying to build their own legacy, their own, their own, fortress in their own life, right? They're trying to constantly build. Jerry Jones has built this machine, right, of the Dallas Cowboys, has made all this money, but in terms of all the other things that you need to do, you're just not going to be able to do. take again like a Jeff Bezos right now, right? He's obviously no longer like the CEO and super hands-on on Amazon, but if he had to start Amazon right now and had to do all those things, he would not be able to build it in the way that he did, because he's already so far gone of who he is. He doesn't have that same level of hunger, determination, that energy, that motivation. He's no longer in that intellectual prime that he once was. He's obviously not a scrub by no means, but he's not there. That is what you need. If you're going to be a great organization, you want that GM, that guy who's really making these decisions, to be in their prime, to know everything that's going on. The guys that are appearing all over around the league. That's not what Jerry Jones is doing. I mean, like, just have one conversation with Jerry and you're going to be like, oh, do you have any idea what's happening around the NFL right now? Like, you know, like, do you have any idea of, like, what are the trends? What's going on? Like, probably not. And it just becomes problematic, quite frankly, right? And it just doesn't show any signs of changing when he has that, you know, interaction with the media, because it's like someone who's at the top of their game would have easily just been able to say, yeah, I get the questions and I understand. Listen, I know we didn't start off to how we wanted to. It's 3-3 and it was a really bad loss. And so it's always easy to criticize after a really bad loss. But I really believe in this team. I believe in Dak and McCarthy. And remember, we're dealing with some injuries. Once we get healthier, I think we're going to be in a much better position. I still think we can fight for this division. You know, it's just that should be so easy to say. But instead, live on air to essentially threaten to replace the host of the radio show is just like what? And again, we're all allowed to have our bad moments. We're all allowed to have our slip-ups. But again, when you are the literal owner of the Dallas Cowboys, you don't really get that benefit of the doubt, not to mention when you keep kind of having these moments happen more and more and more. So this whole thing just has become more of a circus, and I don't know how you're supposed to feel if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan. Because if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, and if you're a fan of like another team and you saw your GM doing this, because again, I know he's the owner GM, you would be like, oh my God, they're gonna fire him. They gotta fire him. This GM's crazy, right? But you can't fire the owner. And he's not the type of person either that seems like he's gonna say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna step back and let my sons take over. Like, no, he is absolutely going to ride this till the wheels fall off, right? I mean, he's just going to do this until there's just no more Jerry. He'll be doing interviews from hospital beds and stuff like that. Like he will do this to the end, to his last breath. And if you're a Cowboys fan, I don't really know how you accept that, right? How you reach like how you reconcile with that's the way that this is going to look. I don't know how you could possibly feel good. But the last thing I will say, and I'll defend Jerry to a small degree, is that, you know, Brew said that he's a terrible GM or he doesn't know how to GM. But the truth is like, we can't always say that, because if he actually is, because if we blame him for all the issues that didn't happen, right? All the things that did happen, all the moves that didn't happen, well, then you still do have to praise him for the moves that did happen. Everybody was praising the Dallas Cowboys for winning those 12-win seasons, and Jerry Jones is the one that built that team. He is the one that went out and got Mike McCarthy, Dan Quinn. He's the one that got Dak Prescott, Micah, Zeke, right? Like, he is the one that did those things. So, and if we want to say, well, he has nothing to do with that wasn't him. Well, then if it wasn't him, then why is he getting blamed for them when things are going bad? That's the interesting thing. And I've pointed out that I think that those 12-win seasons were somewhat misleading, but they weren't trash. They weren't garbage. They were still better than what a lot of other teams around the league were doing. So that to me is always also the interesting conversation of like, who is Jerry Jones? Is he just a pretty good owner GM? But is he kind of like Dak? Honestly, I think that's kind of actually, I think I just answered my own question. Jerry Jones is in a lot of ways like Dak, right? He's probably consistently good outside of any of like these quirky things, right? I mean, now like strictly football stuff and running a franchise. He's consistently good, right? He's not acting like whatever happened with the Washington Commanders and what happened with the Panthers and the Browns, right? So he's consistently good, can absolutely do some great moves, but also does some really bad moves. And it's just, it balances out. And to me, that's who Dak Prescott is as the quarterback. Dak Prescott is consistently good, right? Can do some great things, great throws, great moments, but also plenty of bad moments. And it averages out, right? And that's why you just get a team that's pretty good year in and year out. Yeah, they're pretty good. Not great, not terrible, not a laughing stock, pretty good. And that's who the Dallas Cowboys have been for literally the last 30 years, just pretty good and nothing more and nothing less. And that's a problem in sports, because if you're not getting better, if you're not able to get over that hump, then it's kind of like, what's the point? But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones, and this whole chaos and circus, whatever we want to call it? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.